Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are diving deep into Black Diamond Therapeutics.
Oh, yeah.
They're a clinical stage oncology company,
Uh-huh.
and they're doing some really fascinating stuff. We've poured over financial reports, scientific papers,
Wow.
even got some insider perspectives for you today. So,
Are they just another pharma company? Or are they really shaking things up with this whole MasterKey therapy?
Well, the MasterKey approach is certainly interesting. It really is a whole new way of looking at how we treat cancer, with the potential to address some really big challenges.
I'm hooked already.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start with Black Diamond itself. Kind of a quick overview.
Yeah.
Where did they even come from? What's their story?
They first popped up back in 2014 with this really ambitious goal to revolutionize cancer treatment. Precision oncology is their main focus, and they really made a splash when they went public back in 2020. They raised a cool $200 million in their IPO.
Wow.
And recently, they actually spun off a new company that's all about antibodies, which just goes to show you how versatile their technology is. That's a bold move. So what's the secret to their success? What's this MAP platform everyone keeps talking about?
Their Mutation-Allostery-Pharmacology platform, MAP for short,
Yeah.
is really what they're known for. It all comes down to analyzing genetic data. But we're not talking about just any analysis. We're talking about identifying every single mutation in a cancer-related gene.
Okay, so I'm picturing a giant map of mutations here, but why is that so important? Don't current therapies already target specific mutations?
They do. But that's where things get tricky. Cancer is tricky. It's constantly evolving, and it can become resistant to those targeted treatments.
Oh, so it's like a moving target.
Exactly. Like a game of whack-a-mole with a tumor, always popping up in new forms.
So frustrating.
So instead of chasing after one mutation at a time, Black Diamond is developing drugs that can target a whole bunch of mutations simultaneously.
So it's like a master key.
It is. You got it. Like having a master key that can open every single door in a building instead of needing a specific key for each room.
Okay, so that's their master key therapy, right? Like, how does this actually change the game when it comes to treating cancer?
Well, imagine the possibilities. If you could target multiple mutations at once, you could really deliver a blow to drug resistance. Plus, because these master key drugs are much more targeted, they're potentially a lot gentler on patients, meaning fewer side effects. And a single drug could work for a lot more patients, expanding access to treatment.
That's amazing. So less resistance, fewer side effects, and broader reach. That's incredible. But let's talk specifics. What's actually in their pipeline?
They have a few promising candidates, but there are two that really stand out, BDTX 1535 and BDTX 4933.
Okay.
BDTX 1535 is what we call an EGFR master key inhibitor.
Wow.
Now, EGFR is a protein, and in many cancer cells, it's kind of like a gas pedal that's stuck to the floor, just driving this uncontrolled growth. This drug slams on the brakes.
Oh, wow.
And not just for one type of cancer either.
Really? So it's like a multi-purpose brake pedal for these runaway cancer cells. What types of cancers are they going after with this one?
They're looking at lung cancer and glioblastoma. That's a really aggressive brain cancer.
Like glioblastoma is so difficult to treat. Are they seeing any progress with BDTX 1535 in that area?
The phase 2 trial results are really encouraging. They're seeing a lot of tumor shrinkage in patients, even in those with a specific mutation that often makes tumors resistant to treatment. And the FDA has actually fast-tracked this drug for approval, which means it could reach patients a lot sooner than usual.
That's fantastic news. And what about BDTX 4933? What makes that one a master key therapy?
BDTX 4933 targets a different protein called RAF. It's also involved in cell growth and signaling. Think of it as another set of brakes, but designed to work on multiple RAF mutations. It has a lot of potential against various solid tumors.
So two different drugs, two different targets, but both build on the same principle of tackling multiple mutations at the same time. That's amazing. What stage of development is BDTX 4933 in right now?
It's currently in early phase 1 trials, so still pretty early, but the initial findings are promising. And Black Diamond isn't stopping there. They have even more drug candidates in the pipeline, and they're constantly searching for new ways to use their MAP platform on different cancers.
That's impressive. They sound really dedicated to to pushing the boundaries of cancer treatment. But let's be real for a second. This all sounds incredibly hopeful, but I know there have been some challenges along the way. Our research mentions some recent trials and data releases. What can you tell us about those?
You're right. There have definitely been challenges. It's never a smooth road. But the recent data, especially for BDTX 1535, is actually looking really promising.
Okay, good. So what's got researchers and investors excited?
Well, safety is always the top priority, especially when we're talking about cancer treatments. And so far, the trials show that VDTX 535 has a good safety profile.
That's really good to hear, but a drug can be safe without actually being effective.
Right.
What about BDTX 1535's actual performance in fighting tumors?
That's where things get really interesting. We're seeing some really promising anti-tumor activity, even in patients with some of those really tough-to-treat cancers,
Yeah.
like glioblastoma.
Even in cases where other treatments haven't really worked, this one is showing some real promise.
Exactly. And remember we were talking about how BDTX 1335 is exceeding typical treatment duration expectations. For patients with recurrent glioblastoma,
Yeah,
that's really significant.
it is. It's definitely a glimmer of hope where there often isn't much. Besides the clinical trials, was there anything from the real world that stood out in your research?
Yeah, there was some real-world data presented at a recent conference. It was an analysis of treatment outcomes for patients with certain lung cancer mutations.
And what did they find?
It really highlighted the limitations of the current therapies in those cases, which emphasizes how much we need new solutions. And it might explain why there's so much interest in Black Diamond and their MasterKey approach.
Right, yeah, because we still have so far to go. Speaking of, developing these kinds of treatments is incredibly expensive. How are Black Diamond's financials looking these days?
Well, they're not turning a profit yet, which is pretty common for companies that are still in the clinical trial stage. They're still really in the investment phase, relying on outside funding to continue their research and development.
Which makes sense. They're trying to completely rewrite the rules of cancer treatment. But how long can they keep that up? Do they have enough cash on hand to see these trials through to the end?
As of their last report, they have enough funding to last into the second quarter of 2026.
Okay, so they have some breathing room. But they'll need to be careful. I know our sources mentioned something about restructuring efforts within the company. Can you elaborate on those decisions?
Yeah, they had to make some workforce reductions, and they're reprioritizing their pipeline.
I imagine those were tough decisions. Do you think these moves signal trouble? Or are they strategically adapting to the current situation?
Honestly, I think it's a smart move. By streamlining their operations and focusing on their most promising programs, they're making the most of their resources.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like they're playing chess, not checkers, right? Carefully planning out their next move. How have these business decisions and the new trial data affected their stock price? Has it been a bumpy ride for investors?
Well, it's definitely been volatile. That's to be expected in the biotech sector. It's a roller coaster. But their share price has more than doubled since November of 2024.
Wow, that's a big jump. Do you think that signals growing confidence in Black Diamond's potential?
I think so. Investors are recognizing the disruptive power of this MasterKey approach.
Yeah.
And they're obviously excited about the positive data coming out of the trials.
It's definitely exciting to see a company with such a bold vision starting to get some traction. But let's be realistic, Black Diamond isn't operating in a vacuum.
Right.
What does the competitive landscape look like for them?
You're right. It's a tough field. The oncology biotech sector is incredibly competitive. They're going up against some huge companies, big pharma companies, with tons of resources and global reach. And then there are all the other innovative biotech startups out there. It's a race.
So how does Black Diamond stand out in such a crowded field? What are their biggest advantages in this race to develop new cancer treatments?
Well, their main advantage is their MAP platform and the whole MasterKey therapy concept.
Yeah.
That's what sets them apart. It allows them to target a much wider range of mutations. It lets them overcome one of the biggest hurdles in cancer treatment, drug resistance.
Yeah, it's like they're playing a whole different game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that,
Yeah.
they've got a really strong leadership team with a proven track record of success in biotech.
So they have the science and the business smarts to make it work.
They do. And their focus on addressing those unmet needs in cancer treatment, that makes them really attractive to potential partners and for acquisitions.
Interesting. So they're not just creating treatments, they're also thinking about their place in the larger healthcare ecosystem. With all of that in mind, what's next for Black Diamond? What are some key developments we should be on the lookout for in the coming months and years?
They have some big milestones coming up, especially for their lead drug candidate, BDTX 1535.
What should we have circled on our calendars?
Well, early 2025 is going to be a big one. We should be getting some initial phase 2 data for BDTX 1535 for the frontline treatment of lung cancer. That'll give us a much better idea of how it stacks up against the current treatments.
Right, yeah. That head-to-head comparison will be really telling. Anything else in the near future that could be a make-or-break moment for Black Diamond?
Yeah, also early 2025, we might see a registration path for FDA approval. That's a big one. It's a crucial step in actually making this treatment available to patients.
Yeah, that would be huge. What about BDTX 4933? Are there any updates on the horizon for that one?
Oh yeah, BDTX 4933 is moving right along. We should be hearing more about its progress later this year. Definitely keep an eye out for that one.
So, a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, but let's zoom out for a second. What is Black Diamond ultimately trying to achieve here? What's their long-term vision?
Their goal is pretty ambitious. They don't just want to create new treatments. They want to completely revolutionize how we approach cancer treatment with precision oncology. They're picturing a future where treatments are specifically tailored to each patient's tumor profile.
Wow, that's amazing.
Maximize effectiveness, minimize side effects.
It's a bold vision, but based on everything we've talked about today, it doesn't sound impossible. But we should also talk about the risks. What are some things that could throw Black Diamond off course?
The biggest risk is always that the clinical trials hit a snag. You never know. Unexpected side effects, disappointing results, regulatory hurdles, all those things can cause delays or sometimes completely derail a promising drug.
Yeah, those setbacks are always a possibility. And
They're not profitable yet.
right, so they're depending a lot on outside funding. What happens if that dries up?
That's another big risk. Biotech is volatile. If investors lose confidence or if the whole market takes a hit, it could really impact their ability to raise the capital they need for research.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just about scientific breakthroughs. They also have to navigate the whole financial side of things. And we can't forget about the competition. What if another company comes up with a similar therapy? Or a better one? Or what if there's a totally new approach that comes out of nowhere and makes Black Diamond's technology obsolete?
It's a constant race, that's for sure.
But ultimately, it's all about helping patients, right?
Absolutely. Despite all the risk, I think Black Diamond has a real shot here. The MasterKey therapy is truly groundbreaking stuff. They have a great team, a smart plan, and they're tackling some of the biggest challenges in cancer treatment.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch. So for our listeners out there, what's the one thing you want them to remember about Black Diamond Therapeutics?
Black Diamond is a potential game changer. They have the potential to change the way we treat cancer. And their MasterKey approach could really revolutionize the field.
It's still early. There are definitely risks involved, but the potential rewards are huge.
They are. Keep an eye on the upcoming clinical trial data and those FDA decisions. It's going to be an interesting ride.
So do your research, folks. Stay informed. And to wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to think about. We've been talking about how Black Diamond is working to address the unmet needs in cancer treatment. But what if they achieve the ultimate goal? What if their MasterKey therapy leads to a cure for certain types of cancer? What would that even look like?
Wow, that's a big question. The impact of a discovery like that would be immeasurable, not just for the patients and their families, but for the entire world.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine.
It is.
But it really highlights the potential of companies like Black Diamond.
It does. It's exciting to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for joining us today on this deep dive into Black Diamond Therapeutics. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and never stop asking the big questions. I'm Chad.